Our grand challenge is to increase stable housing, financial stability, and access to childcare for pregnant women who are experiencing homelessness. A recent study analyzing over 18 million pregnancies found that homelessness among women giving birth rose by 72% from 2016 to 2020, highlighting a growing crisis that impacts approximately 1 in 950 deliveries. This challenge is critical because it addresses the intersection of societal issues of housing insecurity, maternal and child health, and economic stability that affect society as a whole, not just the population we are addressing. When pregnant women have stable housing and resources, they are more likely to have healthier pregnancies, and the child has higher protective factors, thus creating a path for the family to contribute to the community positively. And experience homelessness, creating complications of birth and taking care of the child after birth. According to several recent studies, pregnant women who are experiencing homelessness have more significant health risks, higher rates of pre-existing conditions, lack resources to assist with prenatal and postnatal child care costs, and experience systemic discrimination. Furthermore, due to these adversities for the pregnant mother, the child often experiences high risk of health complications and lacks the support for healthy development. We can directly combat most of these issues by increasing housing stability for this population. By reducing barriers to stable housing and access to essential services, we can help decrease poverty and health disparities. There are also long-term societal benefits. Children with safe, supportive environments are more likely to thrive, which creates a stronger community over time. Helping pregnant women who are experiencing homelessness promotes health equity and reduces discrimination for a highly vulnerable population. The primary target population for our intervention is pregnant women experiencing homelessness. These women often face compounded challenges such as poverty, lack of access to childcare, discrimination, and systemic barriers to stable housing. However, their children also inherently become an impacted population as they are vulnerable to poor health outcomes and developmental challenges.
Pregnancy is a time when stability and support are essential for both the mother and the child. Yet for too many women, homelessness creates barriers that can seem insurmountable. Addressing this issue requires a solution that goes beyond providing just shelter. It means creating environments where mothers and their children can thrive together, with access to the care, resources, and stability they need. Pregnancy is a vulnerable time for any woman, but for those experiencing homelessness, it comes with heightened health risk. They are significantly more likely to experience preterm birth and low birth weight. Limited access to prenatal care and nutritious foods compromises their health and the health of their child. And daily exposures to stress, violence, and unsafe environments exacerbates these risks, creating a cycle of poor health outcomes. For these women, simply surviving is an immense challenge. The lack of stability impacts not only their physical health, but also their mental well-being. Access to services that could help these women is often blocked by systemic barriers. Women face stigmatization when seeking health care, leading them to avoid services entirely. Discrimination is rampant in housing applications, making it even harder for pregnant women to find a safe place to live. Intersectional discrimination compounds these challenges for women of color and LGBTQ+ pregnant individuals. They often experience biases at the intersection of their gender, race, and identity, making their path to stability even harder. Structural inequality fuels this crisis in several ways. Gendered poverty means that women are disproportionately affected by low wages and caregiving responsibilities, leaving them with fewer economic opportunities. Policies that criminalize homelessness or place restrictions on aid based on family structure or residency further marginalize pregnant women. The lack of affordable childcare traps mothers in a cycle of instability, Without reliable childcare, accessing employment or education becomes nearly impossible, perpetuating the conditions that lead to homelessness. These systemic challenges are not individual failures, they are failures of the systems meant to support vulnerable populations.
Looking closer at our specific issue, there's a lot of research that looks at pregnant women experiencing homelessness. There are many negative outcomes associated with being a part of this population, both for the mother and for their future child. Notably, pregnant women who are unhoused are overwhelmingly Black or Hispanic, and women who are of color or a part of the LGBTQIA+ community face even more barriers for housing. Additionally, looking at the impact on children, children born to mothers who are unhoused are more likely to become a part of the child welfare system and more likely to experience neurobiological effects in their future. This flowchart comes from a study that was based on the lived experiences of women who are homeless and pregnant, and I think that it's very indicative of the many societal, personal, and economic factors that are influencing these women, as well as highlighting that having support was life-changing for women and therefore is a very crucial need for pregnant women who are experiencing homelessness. I wanted to briefly touch on a case study that follows a woman named Nisha who was unhoused during her pregnancy and received services from Shelter and Grace Ministries, a maternity home in Georgia that provided her with support and resources that allowed her to see a future for her and her child, as well as have the proper skills to face that future. And now her and her child are both thriving. This indicates that when genuine support is offered to women in this situation, as well as helpful resources, it can have a hugely positive result in their lives and the lives of their children. Experts in the field also have a lot to say about support for pregnant women experiencing homelessness. The National Alliance to End Homelessness is a nonprofit dedicated to ending homelessness, founded in 1983. And they cite young pregnant women as a relevant population of homeless youth and young individuals and state that to end their homelessness, youth and young adults need stable housing, supportive connections to caring adults, and access to mainstream services that will place them on a path to long-term success. Another expert, Anne Giordano, an early childhood specialist who has been working with families experiencing homelessness for most of her career, claims that often unhoused pregnant mothers may even feel invisible. They're often less likely to be enrolled in some kind of program, as these programs normally target individuals with elementary-age children. And if they are in a program, it may be very difficult for them to create healthy attachment patterns with their child, as there are many other adults also interacting with their child, as well as an overall unstable environment for their young baby. There are multiple formal and informal services across the U.S. for this population, which can definitely be considered an asset for them. Formal resources consist of nonprofit organizations, as well as government organizations and government benefit programs that fall underneath that category, which can be an asset for individuals or may not be an asset if there are limitations and barriers for these individuals getting signed up for benefit programs. Informal resources include community groups, social support networks that may exist where they live. And as for a service delivery channel, our plan change is hoping to implement further formal resources and supports while understanding that social support is a huge and vital part of the well-being of this population. Through this deeper look at research, professional knowledge, and supports that do exist for this population, it's evident that women experiencing homelessness face a unique set of challenges, and we are seeking to improve their experiences. Therefore, our intervention hypothesis is that it is necessary to increase supports for this population through programming, access to specific housing, and overall more funding. This will seek to improve the overall well-being of unhoused pregnant mothers and the well-being of their future children.
Next, we're going to discuss the plan for impacting change. First, we'll look at the problem. The problem here is that safe and secure housing is limited when it comes to pregnant women, and it affects this population at higher rates than others. This population has a variety of expenses related to health and safety of the baby, and that includes things like medical care, economic stress, and mental health concerns, all of which are listed with some examples. Other expenses can include things like doctor's appointments, transportation, arrival of the baby with clothes, diapers, high chair, and other needs like that, which add additional expenses onto this. Homelessness in pregnant women also have correlated histories of violent victimization, including domestic violence, substance abuse problems, and this causes them to be more at risk overall, as well as to have higher rates of trauma. Another thing about the problem would be the adverse pregnancy outcomes, which are directly related to poverty and low-income experiences in this population. There is a higher association with pregnancy complications and defects associated with pregnant women who have problems with homelessness, and they often experience disruptions in life such as family abuse, neglect, out-of-home placements, chronic health issues, and many other things. There's also a limit to resources such as education, childcare, parenting that will prepare these pregnant women for motherhood and improve their independence and problem-solving skills that are needed to raise a child. There's also a whole new array of concerns that are presented once the baby is born, and those additional expenses and medical needs cause more vulnerabilities. For the proposed action, there's a variety of measures that can be taken concurrently together. First is the call for funding from state and federal government agencies. Next would be to develop specific housing options for pregnant women, having the space, accommodation, and safety needed for this. There will be an ensured access to associated needs such as maternity clothing, nutritional supplements, prenatal vitamins, and other childcare and maternity items. In addition, there will be included resources that are related to healthcare needs, transportation, and other medications and such. In addition to this, for the proposed action, there are other suggestions for development that include specific housing options depending on the stages of maternity, newly birthed, and people who are starting families with more than one child. This keeps people who are like-minded and in similar situations together and creates a better sense of safety and comfort. Programming and services are also really important to provide for these needs, and these can be related to childcare, parenting skills, and other associations for new mothers. There are also agencies that can provide other connections like care management, case management, individual needs, resources, care planning, and all sorts of other actions. For interventions and community participants, there are short and long-term housing rental options for safe settings, and those would be associated with grants for those who are eligible and low income. Case management is another huge thing here, and that would be in relation to housing and coinciding with other needs, such as those pregnancy and parenting resources, securing behavioral health providers, and much more. The community participants here would be state agencies, social workers, healthcare providers, and teachers and facilitators. A key program goal for proposed change here would be to develop those specific housing and programming for this population that assists with these needs. What we are suggesting would be called a maternity group home, and that is suitable housing in a group setting with others in the population, interconnected to all the services that we just discussed and resources directly from the agency running this. A key policy goal of proposed change has to do with increasing the access of affordable care for mental and medical health. This includes things like applying for grants, having access to clinics, prenatal care, free access to basic needs items, as well as maternity support groups. Next, we look at the logic model, where we can see many inputs such as staff, funding, space, partners, educators, technology, furniture, transportation. We have different activities that include group content, different kinds of classes related to parenting and birthing, case management and counseling sessions, and even fundraisers, donations, and staff training. For outputs, the facility would be set to be open for 24 hours with a set of 3 shifts. Approximately 10 staff per 25 clients, associated with 2 daily groups, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, and optional weekly classes and skill building exercises. What is also important here would be daily transportation to and from appointments as needed. Outcomes of this are improved mental health, improved access to safety and security, increased knowledge of parenting skills, and increased access to case management services for other associated needs. The impact of this leads to the decreased chance of adverse outcomes related to pregnancy, an increase in suitable housing for this at-risk population, and increased access to agencies and resources that are associated to individual needs directly correlated with pregnant women who are homeless.
Now, we would like to discuss how to build support for the proposed change we have outlined. Here is a force field analysis that demonstrates the various actors that would be in support of or in opposition of establishing a group home and related programming for this population. On the left side are forces in support for change. These three main actors are the healthcare industry, local communities, and religious institutions. As shown through the size of the arrows, local communities have the largest influence for change. On the right side are forces against change. These forces are business interests, bureaucracy, the prison industrial complex, and not in my backyard mentalities. These agents have varying levels of interest and power in the matter. An aspect to consider is the economic feasibility of a proposal. We expect some opposition on the grounds that it will necessitate an initial investment into the construction and implementation of these programs. However, research has shown through similar initiatives that maternity homes can be cost-effective in the long run and will lead to savings from less child welfare involvement. In addition, two-generation approaches that focus on both the parent and child increase family stability and will reduce welfare costs. Overall, this proposal will decrease future expenditures. Moving to discuss the political feasibility, a proposal such as this needs bipartisan support. While it is expected for this issue to garner public and legislative support due to the fact that it focuses on vulnerable populations such as women and children, it relies heavily on whether the issue is considered valuable and urgent enough among the landscape of many other issues. To truly understand the issue of homelessness for pregnant women, it's important to move beyond statistics and policies and focus on the human experience. Mackenzie is a 22-year-old woman who grew up in poverty, cycling through the foster care system in Los Angeles, California. These early experiences shaped her adulthood, leading to struggles with addiction and unstable housing. Like many others in her situation, Mackenzie faced a lack of support systems and opportunities to break out of this cycle. When Mackenzie found out she was pregnant, the challenges only intensified. She encountered systemic barriers such as inadequate housing programs and bureaucratic hurdles that made accessing even temporary stability feel impossible. On top of this, she faced a stigma often attached to being homeless and pregnant, further isolating her from the potential sources of help. Mackenzie's experience is not unique. Her story underscores the necessity of creating policies that prioritize the unique needs and circumstances of every individual. Without resources, young women like Mackenzie are left without options, and their children are born into cycles of instability and hardship. Mackenzie's story reminds us that behind every statistic is a person navigating unimaginable challenges. By addressing the systemic gaps she faces, we can give mothers like Mackenzie and their children a chance at a brighter, more stable future. Her case calls us to action and reinforces the need for meaningful, long-term solutions. Homelessness among pregnant women is increasing at an alarming rate. Without timely intervention, this crisis will have ripple effects. Children born to homeless mothers face a higher risk of poor health outcomes, developmental delays, and struggles in education. Families caught in this cycle are also more likely to come in contact with child welfare systems, perpetuating cycles of poverty and instability. These cascading problems are preventable if we act now. The time to act is today. We need dedicated and specific interventions for this population. These interventions will not only improve outcomes for mothers and children, but also reduce long-term societal costs. Ultimately, this is about making a priceless investment in our future. Supporting pregnant women experiencing homelessness ensures that every child has the opportunity to thrive, and it strengthens the very fabric of our society. We must recognize this as not just a moral obligation, but a strategic imperative. The issue of homelessness for pregnant women is urgent, but it is also solvable. Together, we can create a future where every mother and child has the stability and opportunity they deserve. Thank you.